uh, skilled coaches really lifts the expectation for our candidates and builds their capacity and their skill and knowledge to assume those levels of leadership, whether it's at a school site or at a district office. But you guys are the ones that are really going to be making this investment in the candidates, and they're going to grow based on the coaching conversations, the work that you're going to be doing through their IIPs, and really just again, just building them up and investing in their leadership as they continue to grow. So we thank you for this commitment. We know that you could be doing other things, so we appreciate your commitment and dedication to the candidates that are coming through in cohort 24. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. Dr. Cassie, you have been communicating with her as our project manager, and you'll hear from her later this evening. Ellen Lugo will be doing the training today. You've talked to Astra, our secretary, and Gwendolyn Green, our administrator, and myself, I'm the CASC lead for our program. One of the unique things in our program is that we have master coaches that they provide opportunities to support in real time for you. If you don't know who your master coach is, go back and look at your original letter. Or if you need to know at the end of this evening, we can make sure that you know. We have some master coaches with us this evening. I've highlighted them in yellow here. Dr. Pamela Brown is here this evening, Wilson Cuellar, Dr. Dan Borgen, Dr. Diana Walsh-Roos, and Deborah Johnson are here today to help us facilitate in our breakout rooms. And so we have 10 master coaches who support us in each of our cohorts. I'm going to turn it over to Ellen.
Thank you, Susan. Well, welcome, new coaches. We have been really anxious to get together with you and to meet you and to interact tonight. So I'm going to start off with talking about educational equity as a driver, and you will hear this throughout our training tonight, and that we really are compelled to develop equity-driven leadership. And looking at what educational equity is, we hear it all the time, and this is very familiar to us, but we just want to ground us tonight in understanding that it is deeper than even the quote says, because it involves resource allocation, cultural responsiveness, and data-driven decisions. And all of those items and concepts are going to be in what we talk about tonight. And to get there, especially when we're developing leaders, we need to develop future leaders or current leaders that can transform our institutions by eliminating inequitable practices and cultivating the unique gifts, talents, and interests of every child, so that success and failure are no longer predictable by student identity. So this slide is really about the dispositions that translate into equitable systems and practices. And it's about what equity leaders do daily, not just their beliefs, but actions that create change. And it starts with self-awareness, examining assumptions and biases before they can authentically lead for equity, model equity openly, have cultural competence, prioritize capacity building. Equity leadership is an individual work. It's about empowering others to notice inequities and take action. And addressing systemic bias. Leaders must be brave and call out and disrupt institutional patterns, deficit thinking, and low expectations. And it requires sustainable structures, creating and building systems and policy that ensure ongoing fairness and access are just not one-time initiatives. So looking on that list of dispositions, take a minute to reflect. And looking at those attributes, where have you spent a majority of leadership time or coaching time? I know many of you are practice coaches, experienced. Put the number of the attribute and your why, where you spend your time as a leader and as a coach. So let's start putting our reflection into the chat. Thank you, Clarissa. Building up others. So important. Sharpen their equity leadership goals. Everybody's picking 4, capacity. That's exciting. Modeling my belief system. Thank you, Mary Alice. Reflect on personal assumptions, Priscilla says, and taking the time to do that. Kevin has multiple priorities. Marginalized groups in the area you serve, and it does, all of these are important. This look. All right. I don't know if everybody contributed, but we appreciate those that did. There we go. Advocating for families, modeling personal beliefs. I love all your whys. They're all critical. Hey, Susan. There you go. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
So the whys really talk about the program requirements and about you as a great coach can change the life of these candidates. So for our program overview, this program is to empower and equip these equity-minded administrators. This program is 40 annual hours of one-to-one coaching with a skilled veteran administrator, that's you, including 3 hours of community practice meetings, and 21 hours must be face-to-face. So that can be via Zoom, FaceTime, or Google Meets. Some of you are coaching all face-to-face or a lot face-to-face and some Zoom. Some of you are coaching 50% and 50% at a school site. And some of you are coaching maybe 65% on Zoom and maybe 2 to 4 times during the school year you're visiting the site. We could talk more about the different kind of models, but it's 40 annual hours. There's a development of an individual induction plan, and they call it professional learning experience. That's the coaching sessions, and culminating in a portfolio representing 2 years of leadership development. In our program, there's 2 technology components. There is a Google Classroom, and at some point, Shireen will talk to you. It's very important that your candidates and you set up an alert so that when communication comes out, you get those alerts. Coaches do not have access to candidate assignments, but we always put information in Google Classroom that gives the coaches a PDF of the assignment that the candidates have so they know what is due. And then, of course, in your coaching sessions, you can always pull up with your candidate on their computer. But Google Classroom is our digital platform designed to facilitate communication for candidates and coaches and post our slide decks. Some of you are in there today pulling up the slide deck and resources. And we assign work to the candidates in there, and we give them feedback and grade their assignments. The master coaches do that. Then, not to be confused, each candidate has a portfolio, a digital portfolio that keeps their self-assessment. that they take 3 times over 2 years. It has an induction plan, and it has an artifacts folder. In this portfolio, you have access and edit rights to the portfolio and should have access at the end of this evening. You can stay online and we can make sure that you have access with your candidates. I'm going to get back into that later, and Ellen will get back into that later. So we have clear administrative roles. The top is the program, and under the program are the master coaches. They work collaborative with you. You should have their phone number and email. If you're working with a candidate and you have some questions as a coach, you can contact, text, and get a hold of your master coach, and they're going to help you with the program. Just set up a Zoom sometimes, and don't wait too long, and so that you can help your candidate in real time. So how did you become a leader? They say, John Maxwell says that more than 80% indicate that they were leaders because someone mentored them in leadership. Relationship-based professional development, that's a big word for coaching. In coaching, some of the time you do some consulting. Sometimes you do some analyzing with the candidate. A lot of us have done mentoring and coaching, but let's spend a minute to talk really about what the difference is between these things. There's always problems and possibilities on one end, and asking and telling. With these new candidates, sometimes our default is to tell because they have problems and they want to consult with you. And we know that that's not the best thing to do. Obviously, with a new candidate, if they're going to do something that's going to get them in trouble, we want to help and consult. Now, there's problems they have, and you can ask questions and help them analyze. And then all of us have mentored where they tell us what their problems are, and we help them think about possibilities. But what we want to do in our program is learn how to ask strategic questions so that they can come up with possibilities. And so how can we spend more time in the coaching quadrant? And where are we asking about possibilities? I'm going to turn this over to Diana. Diana, do you want to control the screen or do you want me to?
You can control it, Susan, if
Okay.
you don't mind. So one of the activities that is really important in our program is having a strong relationship with our candidates. And as we can see, between coaching and mentoring is building trusting relationships. As Susan mentioned, it's asking those facilitative, positive questions through deep listening and giving feedback. Building trusting relationships, there are some suggestions there that you're probably already aware of as experienced coaches, but just maintaining that confidentiality builds trust. Our program is built on confidentiality. What happens in CASC stays in CASC. But your availability and being present for your candidates is also essential, and also being vulnerable yourself and always being honest. Letting go of the need to be right or providing answers. But we begin, and what I want to share with you tonight is getting to know each other through core values. And that's one of the activities that we have built into the CASC program. So if you'd move us forward, please, Susan. So here are some dispositions that enable a coach to build trusting relationships down at the bottom. And these are from Elena Aguilar. Many of these are probably strategies and skills that you've built as experienced administrators over the years. So again, just to emphasize that the coaching relationship must be based on deep trust. And one of the ways we do that, if you would move forward, Susan, is through core value activity. How many of you have participated or completed an exercise on core values in the past? Has anyone done that in the past? If you just raise your hand for a second, I can see many of you have. So our core values really act as anchors for us each and every day. Our candidates are going to experience many successes in the 2 years you spend with them, but there are going to be some challenges and some difficulties. And that's when our candidates lean into their core values. Also, knowing your candidates' core values and discussing it with them helps you get to know them a little bit better in terms of who they are as a person and what's important to them. So if we could move forward, Susan, again. So we have an exercise for you, but what I'd like to point out is in the upper left-hand corner are a couple of resources for you. And one of the things about the CASC program is we have so many resources for you. So there's a great article. It's a short read, just a couple pages on how core values foster and build resilience in educators. And then there's an extensive, probably not an exhaustive, but an extensive list of core values. We'd like to give you an opportunity to experience an activity that you'll be doing with your candidate as they develop their individual induction program, their IIP. So we're going to ask that you take a minute and think about your core values. And then when you go into your community of practice groups, we're going to ask that you do a quick introduction and then share your top 3 core values and what they mean to you based on your pre-work. So we actually ask candidates to narrow it down to just 3 top core values. And the way Elena Aguilar does this is she has people start with 10, then narrow it to 5, and then the top 3. So however you and your candidate arrive at those top 3 is fine. So once you've shared your core value, if time allows, please consider sharing how your understanding of them has evolved, changed, and deepened over time. So we're going to take about 12 minutes to do this in our breakout groups. And so we'll come back together at, let's see, would you say 4:40, Susan?
Yes, and Sharina put the timer on, and if you can see the room you're at, when she opens up 4 rooms, you can go to the room that you see on the list here. And the master coaches will be there to help facilitate.
I think we have just about everyone back. So any insights, any ahas from your conversations, any takeaways or appreciations that you'd like to share regarding core values and specifically, their application to working with your candidates? You can please just unmute yourself and share.
I'll share. I wouldn't say I was surprised, but we all had family, which I think for most of us in the meeting probably all had that as one of our top core values. And we just talked about the commitment to our family, but the commitment to the families and the communities that we serve, and just that responsibility we have to take care of one another, and in doing so, creating that family environment. So it was reassuring that for me that we all had family, but not a surprise.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Those core values go deep and go back, a long time. Maybe 1 or 2 other people to share an aha or something you learned or an appreciation.
I'll share. I was just thinking that throughout the exercise, really knowing and understanding someone else's core values, especially in the coaching world, is really going to help me to provide them with the right direction of where they want to go, meeting their individual needs while still meeting the needs of others. So I thought it was a great exercise.
Thank you, Clarissa. Absolutely. Yes. And making that connection with them. Yeah. Maybe one more share?
I think just the difficulty to drill down to 3, right? There's so many options, and I think at times we think we're all of them, right? And that was something that I grappled with quite a bit, and then trying to not be right but be honest with myself and where I think I am.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. And I was in the room with you and Wilson and the rest, Ocean, and the rest of the group, Priscilla. And you talked a little bit about how they change over time as well, how our priorities change as our life changes. So, yeah. So you have now a good foundation as you move forward in working with your candidate and doing this exercise. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana. We're going to move into the foundation of our program, our capsules and description of practice. By the end of the program, the candidates must demonstrate competence in at least one of the elements in each of the capsules. And they do this through the equity leadership goals. Some people call this the SMART goals, but SMART goals don't do it all. There's more that goes into a SMART goal. There's a capsule placemat link on there, and these standards in a summarized way, we'll go over them for a second, but as you know, candidates are responsible for different roles in the different schools where you coach them. And sometimes a candidate can sit and do for 2 years, they only do discipline and they don't get any opportunities to have roles to grow and learn in other areas. And our job as coaches is to make sure that they're having experience in many different areas. So for capsule standard 1, development and implementation of a shared vision. And then there's 3 elements under there: student-centered vision, developing a shared vision, and vision planning and implementation. And over time, this isn't just them doing it, it's them doing it with the staff as a leader. Number 2 is instructional leadership. There are 3 elements: professional learning culture, are they running a meeting, curriculum instruction, and assessment and accountability. Is the principal or the person in the building giving their opportunities to work in these elements? Number 3, management and learning environment. Sometimes APs, maybe at a high school, they're only doing operations and facilities, climate for discipline, plans and procedures, and maybe some human resources. So you can see that over the 2 years, we want to make sure they're getting experiences in all of these. Standard 4, family and community engagement. Oh, you'll notice in standard 3, there's 4 elements. In standard 4, there's 3: parent and family engagement, community partnerships, community resources. I'm not going to read through all the rest of these, but standard 5 is ethics and integrity. And standard 6 is external context and policy. So some of these seem like they're far away from the job, but in our training, as we go through the year, we're going to talk about what this looks like at a school site. So we have a better description of practice book from West Ed. This is like our Bible of the program, and you're going to look at this in your breakout group in a minute. And in this description of practice book, it really breaks down the elements and the practices of the candidates. And when the candidates go to the orientation, right after they go to the orientation, they take a self-assessment of themselves and all of the standards and the elements. And they come back and they talk to you about what where they think they are in these standards and these elements. So in this book, for instance, this is standard 1, element 1, student-centered vision. And it has a very good description, and then it has indicators of practice. So are they practicing that? And a better example is it has a continuum that are they practicing this and directed toward the standard? Their practice approaches the standard, a practice that meets the standard, a practice that exemplifies the standard. And they can look and see that they start over here in understanding it, and then they're communicating it, and then the leader and the staff are working towards this, and then the leader manifests the vision and the staff is working on it and is implementing it. So the staff, as you meet over the year, you can always go to this and say, hey, where are you in element 1A? I noticed that you started out saying you're directed toward the standard. Where do you think you are now? Are you moving forward? You don't think you are? What do you think you need to do to move forward in this standard? So this is a very important, critical document that we use. So in your breakout group, sorry. Thank you. In your breakout group, you're going to each be given a capsule, group 1. So you're going to go back in your same group. You're going to have capsule 1, group 2, you're going to have capsule 2, group 3 and 4, you're going to have capsule 3. You're going to discuss the element. Where do you see opportunities for equity work with your candidates? And where would you see the work expected in developing an equity leadership goal, like a SMART goal? So like room 1, you're going to read through this together, discuss the capsule meaning, and where do you see opportunities for equity work with your candidate? And then where would be the work that you would expect to see when you're developing the equity leadership goals? Read some of the things that would exemplify and show the work on this capsule. As we go from the capsules to our induction plan, just in the chat box, or if you want to take off your mic for a second and make comments, what are some opportunities in your different standards or elements that you saw opportunities for some equity, if you'd like to share out?
So in our area, we saw opportunities for systems building, but also along with that system building, opportunities for voice, shared decision making, and collaboration.
Thanks, Jason. That was great. Who else?
Yeah, we're kind of on the same page with Jason, and just really being transformational in how we're talking through the different capsules so that we can support our candidate and not just have them stuck in the office they serve, but see how their work aligns across the organization.
Perfect. Who else?
We
Susan,
we
oh,
had,
go
sorry.
ahead.
We had the curriculum and instruction. So we discussed not only the satellite data, but also exploring potential biases related to equity when we are working with new administrators.
Perfect. Perfect. Wilson.
No, we were just discussing also the unique opportunity, especially for some of our coaches that are not necessarily working at a school site. Maybe they're working in a district office or the county office, but still finding the connection to the different levels of the proficiency level for all of these capsules, and really engaging in conversation as to how our role, even if we are at a district level, a coordinator that's somewhat removed from the site, looking for those opportunities, how our roles are still very much connected to equity and knocking down the barriers for students, even if it's coming from a district office.
Thank you, Wilson. Good point. We have some coaches here that are coaching social workers, coordinators. They're not at a school site, so we've got to really broaden our view and our support. And we're going to learn from you as you have these different kinds of leaders in our programs. It continues to broaden. I'm going to turn it over to Ellen as she focuses us on our IIP.
Thanks, Susan. I really appreciated getting into rooms and hearing the high level of conversation you guys were having. We're going to make a shift now and get into the what is this work going to look like and what are the moving parts in it. So
Ellen,
on this slide,
we can't see that. We see a slide in your email. We need to see your whole slide.
Goodness. Let me go back to stop sharing. I didn't click the right one. Here we go. Are we good now?
We're not going to help you with your email balance.
Please. Don't even want to look at how many. Do you guys see what you're supposed to see now? Good. All right. So we're going to shift into this thing we call an individual induction plan, which will document your entire journey, your coaching journey, and your candidate's learning journey in the program. And in that induction plan, it includes the self-assessment. We already talked about that as part of the capsule conversation. It's going to include a deep dive into data. And it is a robust collection and analysis of both quantitative and qualitative data, which I heard in some of the groups already talking about that, which made my heart sing. Identification of equity gap, student group, contributing factors, a potential bias. And this planning process will lead to crafting 2 equity leadership goals. And those 2 leadership goals must focus on the equity gap and working towards closing it, but they also need to be clear, realistic, and focused on the students and system improvement. In implementing those 2 equity leadership goals, they're going to develop actions. And those actions are going to be, what are they going to do? And how will they know? And they're going to monitor those actions to know if they're making progress by collecting data and identifying what is working and what and not working. And there will be, throughout this whole process will be your role and ongoing coaching. And this is where the magic happens, is you guys meeting with them and coaching them through this process, using your tools, your coaching tools, and helping them to gather through the data evidence of impact that their work is having and engaging them in that deep reflection. So here, hopefully you have your slide deck handy. And if you want to get to this slide, which is 38, and click on, there's a link over here. We're going to take a walk through this thing we're calling the IIP so that you can get a sense of what's in there. So when you open it, you should see this main page, and this is kind of like your index. What is in this thing? Okay, and you see that you have main tabs, cohort 24 flow chart, and that is right here. You can see the tab over here, and then it just gives you the timeline. You're going to be using this flow chart. And then it gives you what subtabs are there. There aren't subtabs in that one. You also have the due dates and timelines. And then you get to candidate profile. And their work, they're going to document their work on the main tab. But if you click these little triangles, you will see that there are resources to support that work in the main tab. And if you scroll down, it gives you when is this work supposed to happen? And what do all the sub-tabs have? So in the candidate profile, they're going to be completing this with, you know, and a lot of this they do, and you review and coach, you know, with them to understand. You see the handy dandy, the core values activity is right there in the IIP. When you get to the equity goal planning, you're going to see all kinds of sub-tabs, because we have all kinds of support resources to support your candidate in documenting their goal development process. And we're going to go through several of those tonight. So this is how the IIP is set up. You go to Equity Goal 2, and then they have their professional learning. And then you have your coaching log of hours, which is where you're going to document the time, the date, the time, and just a few notes about what your coaching session was about, and was it face-to-face, virtual, and then you'll keep track of your hours on this. And then you're going to wrap up your year with a final impact presentation. But we're going to go back up, and I'm going to take you back over here. I just wanted you to see how you navigate, and we're going to explore many of these resources. So we're going to really delve into the concept of equity leadership coaching and what it looks like in our program. And here's a quote that I think all of us can relate to. I'm a retired assistant superintendent, and we're still working on the equity gaps that were identified when I was working. And then this slide is starting at the bottom. This is what we want the shifts in our candidates' thinking to look like. We want them move from knowing to understanding. You know, numbers give knowledge, but stories give meaning. We want them to move from simplicity to understanding the complexity. Equity issues are layered. Qualitative data helps us embrace more of that complexity and find more understanding. We want them to not always live in the urgent. And, you know, new assistant principals live in the urgent, and there's no way around that. But through coaching, you can help them make space for what's important and understand a backup from the urgent to even reflect on why is this happening? And how can we move our thinking to beyond the immediate needs, but develop those insights that point to deeper systemic priorities that need to be developed. We want them to move from just being efficient, because we're, you know, as administrators, they're talented, they're capable, they're competent, and a lot of them love checking off the to-do list. And we all do. It makes us feel good. But we also got to move towards being effective, and not just getting things done, but getting things done that creates better outcomes for kids. And then we really need to get them to embrace not just their perspective, because they're smart, they're educated, they make decisions based on what they know, but to slow down and to bring in multiple perspectives into their conversations and their thinking, so that they can get those multiple perspectives. And if we look at capsule 1B1, you know, it's really about leaders must intentionally collect diverse perspectives to craft shared vision and goals. So we're going to get into our first piece of reviewing some resources. And if I move back over here to the sample IIP, you will find the tab qualitative data. It's under equity goal planning. And you will also find the tab for data versus evidence right below it. So what we want you to take about 5 minutes, and you're going to just preview those two sub tabs and be reflecting as you're doing this. How does this connect to your role or past experiences using data to identify and address equity gaps? And then we're going to move you back into your breakout group, and you're going to have a discussion around those questions about what role does qualitative data play, what are your ahas about the differences between data and evidence, the different types of data, and what has been most useful to you in your role. How have equity gaps been identified and addressed in your work, and talk about some of the challenges and successes you've had. So with that, Susan, do you want to give them 5 minutes on their own right now and then move them into groups?
That'd be good.
Okay, so let's start. I'll just put it on my phone, 5 minutes. So go ahead and take a look at those resources, and then we will move into our breakouts. Well, just like we're going to have another opportunity to just do some insights from your conversations and any appreciations you want to share for your group. So who wants to start us off with something that came out as an insight?
I would say,
In our room, I just very much appreciate how we had some honest conversations in our group about challenges and really communicating with the candidates that we are coaching, that even if a strategy, even if a decision that was made, even if it was based on evidence, and even if it was based on an analysis, a cycle of inquiry, and if it didn't work out, don't see it as a failure, but really see it as an opportunity to self-reflect, see it as an opportunity for adjustment, but not because it failed. We're just chipping away at what is the best approach towards equity for our students. It was quite a powerful statement.
I appreciate that, Wilson. And I think you'll hear us. We say you probably learn more from what doesn't work than what does work. And we aren't looking at goals as wrap them up with a bow. It's really about learning. Thank you, Wilson. Clarissa, you were going to share?
I just think kind of from our group is meeting them where they're at, and that the data piece here is a hard onion to peel because there's so many different layers and everyone may have a different understanding. So some you may have to go to real basics, where others may be, further advanced, but to make sure you have a common understanding of what is qualitative, what is quantitative, to be able to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So some of your candidates are going to come in with a lot of experience with data. They may be very skillful, and some of yours, this is going to be all new. So meeting them where they are is really critical. One more person share, and then we'll move on.
So in referring to our presentation today on trusting relationships, it talks about being vulnerable. So I shared, I'll be vulnerable and admit I never made the connection between data and evidence. So I appreciated having that explanation to empower me some more. So.
Well, thank you, Stephen, and thanks for being vulnerable. We'll let you know that this is pretty recent learning for us too, that we've embedded. So you're not late to the party. Okay, I'm going to share and make sure I'm sharing correctly. Just to kind of wrap up that big picture that we just took is another quote. And again, it's a reminder that data is not just about numbers. It's a lens for examining the systems that shape student experiences. And that's what this work is really about. And that, on the surface, policies, practices, and procedures may appear neutral, but data reveals whether they are truly equitable. And that is the learning journey candidates are going to go on. So this is what we call our CASC funnel. And this guides you as a coach through this process of what is this going to look like, this coaching for equity. And the funnel really breaks it down into a step-by-step. So it's going to help candidates move from raw data to crafting meaningful equity goals and implementing those actions. So the very top is identify. We're gonna find out what's going on here, and this is the quantitative data to spot patterns, trends, inequities across student groups. We're going to ask candidates to select one student group. They might want to select two. We'll talk more and more about that, even in the coaches training, because we don't want them to get too lost in being too general, but roll up their sleeves with a specific equity focus. Clarifying is all about, why is this happening? Using the qualitative questions to understand the why behind the numbers. This step centers on student and stakeholder voice to bring meaning to those patterns of data. Example, a gap in math achievement may be tied to access, language support, or instructional approaches. This is where we're going to dig in and try to clarify. And then analyzing is digging deeper to identify the contributing factors, which could be systemic barriers, resources, practices, biases, documenting both evidence from both types of data. And I think with the evidence piece, you see it's pulling all of the data together to identify evidence in those patterns and trends. And this is what candidates shift from describing what's happening to interpreting why it matters. And then we move into, how do we respond? How do we define and prioritize critical needs? How do we develop and draft equity leadership goal that targets that need with specifics? And then when you move to the blue, all the green happens in the beginning. You spend the rest of the year modifying and refining based on the evidence from the data and evidence of the impact we're making or seeking. So you're going to identify what success will look like and how it's going to be measured. You can refine the goal to ensure that it might go in a different direction when they get into it deeply. That's fine. This is a fluid process. And so it lines to Capsule 1C, which emphasizes addressing achievement and opportunity disparities among student groups, especially those impacted by cultural, racial, linguistic, socioeconomic, or ability differences. And the funnel helps leaders move beyond assumptions and acting on assumptions to using data systematically to uncover and address inequities. This is very aligned to what your candidates are going to do on their equity goal planning document. So if you look at the funnel, which there's right here, the funnel is in the IIP, you see that every step happens and they document on their equity goal planning document. So you should see an explicit correlation. And what we find is you have to slow them down and make them go through each step. They come in knowing what they want to do, and they're not letting the data drive that decision making. So that's part of your coaching challenge. And in that, one of those things that's really important, again, I think this goes back to what one of you said about meeting them where they are. This is probably not a new visual to you, but it's really important that you have a conversation with your candidates about bias. And again, biases are automatic judgments and assumptions we make, often without awareness, and they can influence how we interpret data, interact with students and colleagues, and make leadership decisions. So the mirror is self-reflection, and it means that we need to examine our own beliefs, experiences, blind spots, and asking ourselves, what assumptions am I bringing to this work? How might my own identity or experiences shape how I interpret data or interact with others? And recognize that bias doesn't make us bad people. We all have them. It makes us human. And growth comes from the awareness of those biases. And looking out the window represents the external reflection, noticing the broader environment, culture, and community. And questions you should ask when you're reflecting on that is, how do my students, families, and colleagues experience school policies and practices? Whose voices are included or maybe excluded from decision making? And again, this aligns to getting those multiple perspectives and not just our personal assumptions. And this is for leaders. This is effective leaders must continually balance, looking inward and outward. And it's not a one-time activity. It's an ongoing practice of noticing, reflecting, and adjusting our actions. So we're going to have another piece of content, and this moves us into, and I'm going to take you back to this IIP. And if you look what we've done already on the planning doc, is we are now getting into investigating root causes, and that aligns to our funnel. So you're going to be looking at tab contributing factors and bias. And you're going to go, this is, you're going to, I think we have, Susan, let me look at these tabs. I can't remember the time we did. I think we could do that in 3 minutes. I think you guys can do that. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to review that subtab, and then we are going to get into another breakout group. So I'm going to put my timer on, and you have 3 minutes to review that material. 3 minutes. We're going to put you in groups, but in your groups, I want you to really push as you talk about your experience with contributing factors or bias, and real examples. Look for connections between what are some system level contributing factors and maybe some human behavior belief contributing factors and or bias, and talk about how you in your experience dealt with those, and how we prepare candidates to recognize and address bias as they delve in. So I'm going to stop sharing and have Shireen open up our groups. Thank you, everybody, and coming back. And we're going to just do a quick share out, but I was in a breakout room with some meaty conversation around this. So I'm sure that was some of your experiences too. So is there someone that would like to share something that came out that we should all hear about? Who will share? It's like romper room. I'm going to go pick on somebody. Was there an example or just some ahas that came out? Victoria?
We talked about ELs, our EL students, especially at the high schools, how, because they're EL students there, they have to be given an ELD, designated ELD class, which keeps them from electives and A through G requirements that they need to go to college. So it's the way it's always been done. I work with attendance, so SARF meetings, it's always been, write them a ticket, take them to the court, punish them, and I'm trying to change that. So, but that's, I was told that's the way it's done.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. Well, being reactive versus proactive is, sadly a lot of the reality we've experienced. Susan, are we going to? Susan?
Yes.
Are we going on, or are we taking a break?
We can take a break.
Okay. Welcome back, you guys. There's a few slides that we're going to go through more as a reference since we're a little bit behind in our time. So this slide is about scope and scale of equity leadership goals. What do we consider? Again, these are new administrators. We want them to make decisions about scope and scale around, do they have direct oversight of the goal focus? Do they have some authority and influence? You know, a site leader may not be able to change district-wide curriculum, but they can influence how teachers at their site use adopted materials. So again, getting them to think within their context. Without direct oversights, they may risk setting goals that are disconnected from their sphere of responsibility and may have little impact. Do they have established relationships with staff? If they're brand new to a site, that is going to really impact the context of what the work they do. And relationship building will probably need to be part of the goal. And so when we think about scope and scale, and we'll talk more about this at the coaches training, is they can start small. They can start with a team, a grade level, it doesn't have to be school-wide. So we'll talk more about that at the next coaches training. Again, I'm just going back to the funnel, because everything in green is what we talked about and the rest of the year is blue. This coaching map is for the green. Okay, this is for identifying equity gaps. These are in the candidate's IIP. You'll see a sub-tab that says identify coaching map. And you can see these are all directly related to the funnel process. And it has questions for each stage of identifying the equity gap, determining evidence of root causes and problems of practice. So that is the coaching map you're going to want to plan from until we get into monitoring, which that map looks like this, the blue map, which is the coaching map for monitoring the impact as they implement their goals. So those resources are there for you. We're not going to have time to do this one tonight, but I just want you to have this. We do want you to explore those resources. The Developing Equity Goals sub-tab, examples of scope and scale. I'm going to move over here. If you, scope and scale, I think is under equity and developing the equity goals. So just be looking at that resource and the maps. So we're going to move on to something that's in the IIP, which is the sample review. So you're going to want to have this open, your sample IIP. And I am going to have you look at where you see equity goal planning sub-tab where it says site sample. Then there's one that says do sample, but that stands for district office. And then the co-sample is county office. You are going to have candidates that may be in different spheres. They might be at a site level, a district level, or a county level. So I'm going to move first to show you how you find these. So you see in your tabs an equity goal. If you open up your equity goal planning, you see a little school. That means that's the site sample for an equity goal planning doc. And then if you go into equity goal number 1, you see a site admin sample equity doc. So these all link site sample planning to site sample goal number 1 to site sample goal number 2. So it starts with the planning. They craft their goals. Here's what the goal looks like. And then for number 1, and then goal number 2. So looking at the sample, if you're assigned the site, you're gonna look at the schoolhouse underneath goal planning, underneath equity goal 1, and underneath equity goal 2. So going back to this, I want to remind you that the samples are not perfect. They represent the level of thinking and of the process that we expect our candidates to demonstrate. So you're going to be assigned either the site sample, the district office sample, or the county sample. And you're going to be in your group, someone can share it, or you can read it, kind of go over it together. We want you to discuss your ahas from the sample. How does the sample support you as a coach? How can the sample support your candidate? And how will you use the sample? So I'm going to go back here. And here is going to be, and Susan, we have 3 groups. So do we want group number 4 to do site sample 2? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, so group number 1, you're going to review the site sample and equity goal number 1. Group number 2, you're going to review the district sample equity planning doc. Let me show you where that is. That's the one that says district office, district office. Group number 3, you're going to do the county office planning doc and equity goal 2. You can do goal 1 or 2. I don't think it matters. So you're going to go down here to the county building and under the planning doc and under goal number 1.
And then
Okay.
group 4, you want them to do.
Yeah, group 4, why don't you do the site sample too? Group 1 and 4 will do the same. So hopefully somebody in your group followed those documents and can support you through it, and we'll wander and make sure you find the things. Susan, how much time do we want to give them?
We said 15 minutes.
Okay, so try to make sure you break your time up on the planning doc and the goal that goes with the planning doc. We want you to see the connection between the 2. All right, and I know the master coaches will navigate this successfully for you. Okay. Okay, well, we hope you had a chance to kind of navigate through the how the planning doc process connects to the 2 equity goals, and how you will then be monitoring those equity goals throughout that first year. I'm going to wrap up this whole section on that's been pretty. Did I share the right thing? Nope. I have to learn how to do that better. With this visual, we wanted to kind of leave you with, okay, this is lots of information, lots of process, lots of tools. So here it is kind of in one big nutshell. So the equity goal implementation is really 4 stages of continuous improvement. You're starting at the big outer layer with collecting the data, both quantitative, qualitative. You're going to spend a lot of time analyzing that data for patterns, trends, and equity gaps. You're going to then implement your goal and be identifying and adjusting the actions you're using in your goal, you're taking in your goal to get a better outcome, to make a deeper impact. And you're going to, at the wrap up of the end of the year and along the way, you're going to be determining impact and measure equity impact and outcomes. So that's kind of wrapping up everything we talked about once we dove into that IIP and all the tools and processes. Susan, do you want to share, or do you want me to stop sharing?
I think I got it.
Okay, you want me to stop sharing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you see mine now? Okay. So there's a lot, and we're going to go through the IIP with the candidates, like we've done with you, and in more in depth. So you can take a deep breath. And we wanted you to be a little ahead of them for that. Also in the coaches training, we're going to do some work with that. But I want to set you up for success. So here, they always say you remember the beginning of the training and the end of the training. So here's what you need to remember for the end of the training. So we have a flow chart, and also we have these dates for you. These dates are for the next 2 years. You can put them on your calendar for the next 2 years. Yes, that's overwhelming to do, but you can do that. These dates are in Google Classroom, and they're here. And I wanted to look at the flow chart for a minute, because in one of my breakout rooms, we talked about looking at the planning doc and looking at the equity leadership goal sheets. And that is a lot. So you have from now until actually January to be working on this, but don't sit down, because we have a very systematic way to help you do the heavy lifting and your candidate do the heavy lifting. And so we have this flow chart literally week by week, every 2 weeks. And I have a lot of coaches that put this on their calendar. For instance, we're going to talk on Saturday or Tuesday after the coaching training about contacting your candidate. Some of you have already contacted, but we have a little agenda even that you can use with them, or things you might want to go over. After the first coaching meeting, we're going to tell the candidates to take the self-assessment. Here's the link. They take the self-assessment. After they do, they get emailed the answers to the self-assessment, and then they upload it to their portfolio. October 6th through 17th, I'm not going to go through all this, but a meeting agenda for you is you're going to do the core values activity if you have it, and you're going to fill out the coaching log, and we're going to talk all about that later. But here it is, step by step. The second meeting face-to-face, here it is. You fill out the IIP profile work contacts, the candidate fills it out, and you have a discussion. It says candidate and coach self-assessment and the results. So, and whenever we have a check-in meeting, we have a check-in meeting in a community of practice where in November we check in and see where they are in the documenting their equity leadership goal planning. So that document that you looked at that was all filled in, by November, that should be filled in, because it's sort of a draft, and they're going to share it with other people that might be focusing on the same thing they're focusing on in a breakout room. Then they come back and work on it with you for another month. And then in January, their IIP is due. So they have a long time. So I'm going to tell you how this works, going back to, and then there's also the dates for all the meetings and everything there. So let me tell you how this works. You put it on your calendar now. You can use it for the flow chart, and put it on your calendar and use it for your coaching sessions. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. And then we have support sessions. So if your candidate or you are not able to get the work done, We have support sessions that are already the calendar on there. You might as well put them on there. If you're not able to do that, your master coach is going to tell you that this support session is mandatory at the 3, 6, 9 month time, and you'll come to this meeting. We'll put you in a breakout room with your master coach. Sometimes it'll take 10 minutes, sometimes it'll take a half hour, just to check in and find out where you're having trouble in the program. If that doesn't work out, we can't get a hold of people. Sometimes we ask people to have a pause in the program. Here's the best strategy ever. I would do this ahead of time. Even if you know your candidate, maybe your candidate's a friend or whatever, what strategies make sure that the coaching session occurs and are productive? I coach and I set up 3 to 4 coaching sessions ahead of time. I don't coach and then make the next meeting and coach and then the next meeting and coach. Here's why. Somebody calls me on a Monday and said, oh, they have an emergency at their school and they'll call me later and set up in the next appointment. It never happens. But if I have another meeting already set up, then we don't have to worry about it. So use a standing, some people use a standing appointment if needed. If you have somebody that cancels a lot, you know, you can go on, say, hey, I know you have to cancel, but let's talk on the phone for 15 minutes. Here's the other thing. I never go to a coaching session without a mini agenda. I have to have a purpose for my coaching agenda and my coaching session. Here's why. We can always talk an hour about that crazy parent, that school board member, their boss, or what's not getting done, but that's not really all that we're going to talk about. So I send sometimes, this is my my calendar invite. It has what we're going to do. The coaching session, equity goal planning doc. We're going to do questions 1, 2, and 3. Actually, and then down here, I write what they're going to do. Make sure you get through the first 3 sections. Bring qualitative and quantitative data. And I attach the flow chart to it. Use it as your calendar invite. And then the day before, I text message a reminder of the meeting. And then what they're supposed to do. All these things can help you be successful. And so I would set up your coaching sessions like this. Don't wait until they're not working out, but make it your expectation. I'm going to stop and let Shireen talk about technology expectations.
Okay, let me share my screen. So as you all already know, that the candidate's IIP that was shared with you in the introduction email is located in a drive. So that shared drive, as master coaches and the people who oversee the program will have access to all the candidate portfolios. But as a coach, you will only have an access to your specific candidate portfolio, which has inside it the candidate IIP and other like folders. So they're going to be working on that. You will have access to it as an editor as well. And also we have Google Classroom, who I sent the link for you to join. But Google Classroom as a coach, it's only for announcements and posted materials. You will not be submitting assignments, but your candidate will. So you're going to just view materials, and it's going to be our communication hub. So everything moving forward will be posted in Google Classroom. If we're communicating a meeting and a due assignment, Zoom links, it's all going to be within Google Classroom. So let's go first. I'll go over how to turn on notifications for Google Classroom, but let's go over the do's and don'ts with the IIPs and the folders, the Google Classroom, and all the technology. So first of all, you need to join Google Classroom using a personal Gmail account for two reasons. A lot of school districts, they block outside the organization access. So you might try your district email address to join Google Classroom and it will not allow you, because your district has this feature to not allow you to join any Google Classrooms outside. Maybe they allow you to join Google Classroom, but block certain access or certain features within Google Classroom or even Google Apps. So to prevent all this trouble, we just ask you to, can you see my screen? Okay, so we just ask you to join with personal Gmail account, and you can always check what account you're in by toggling over your profile picture here. So sometimes you might be toggling between two accounts, maybe the work while you're at work. So if you want to check, always make sure that you're using one Google account to access the portfolio and to join Google Classroom. And we ask you, and we're going to stress that in orientation for your candidate, that you always work online, which means you do not download the IIP into a Microsoft Word. Just use Google Apps and always work on the copy that we shared with you. Do not download them and work offline, because as you work on the IIP or your candidate, it's always like saving instantly. So we're going to ask your candidate to not work offline, always keep it online working, and where you will always see all the edits and also us as a program people. So never use two accounts to access the materials. We've seen some who accessed using personal Gmail account using Google Classroom, but they use their district to access the drive. So just always make sure that you are in one Google account, so it's not like to prevent confusion. And we've seen people accessing Google Classroom with two accounts, so we're going to delete access to one and keep just one. And do not rename any of the folders that we shared with you. So if you look at the folder, it has your first and your candidate's first and last name. So keep it that way and ask your candidates to keep it that way as well. And we're going to tell your candidates that. So all the portfolios has the candidate first and last name. We want to keep it that way. The IIP, we want to keep it with the first and last name and IIP. So that's the IIP. You have access to it as editor, and your candidate has access to it. Just always work on that copy. Do not make a copy and then like you're going to copy and paste materials to it. No, just work on that one. Do not rename them. Do not make copies. Do not work offline. So let me show you how to enable email notifications. So every time we post something in the announcements, you will get notified. And if we post even a material, you will get notified. If we post anything on the stream, here's the stream. If I post or Susan post anything, you're going to be notified. So how do you do that? Make sure you are in Google Classroom, the cohort 24. And if you scroll at settings, so your email notifications, if it's turned off, you need to turn it on. And then if you go there and make sure all of these turned on and go to class notifications and find your class, it's going to be here, and also turn it on, make it blue. So in that case, all of these things, when they're in Google Classroom, you'll be notified by email if any of these like applies. some of them might apply to your candidate only, but we do want you to get all the notifications. And if you used your personal email address to access Google Classroom, we do want to ask you and your candidate to make sure that your name is your first and last name, the one that we have for you in our roster. So how do you change that? You go to account settings, and then from there, you make sure that your name is your first and last name, and then you save it. Because we've seen some like names that we don't know who they belong to, like property manager, one of them was. So we had to delete the access of that candidate because we need to have a first and last name in our roster.
Shireen, if they have questions about those accounts, can they stay, they can stay online after the meeting and we can make sure they're connected either to Google Classroom or to their portfolio?
Yes, or you can email me if you still do not have access to your candidate's portfolio or your Google Classroom. So by the end of today's training, we want to make sure that you have access to these two, Google Classroom and the link that takes you to your candidate portfolio.
So we're going to put you in your last, you wanted to leave that up? We're going to put you in 10 minutes in with your last time out. And okay, I guess I'm going to share this. In your groups, what new insights about coaching do you have? What tools were reviewed that you want to know more about, and clarify any questions with your master coach? I know we've gone through a lot. And then come back, and then we just have a short survey for you. And then anybody that needs some help can help with Shireen. So one of the things that Ellen and I and all the master coaches value from our program is we take your survey results and we make changes. That's what's nice about our organization. We don't have to go and ask permission from somebody to change something. We take your advice and we change. And so I put the survey link in there. If you would please give us feedback about tonight. And as we close up, anybody that wants to stay on and get access to your candidate's portfolio or Google Classroom can talk with Shireen. But we'd really like to just, as we go out tonight, unmute yourself for a second and just for fun, what's one thing that you're going to take away if you were coaching tomorrow that you might take away that from our program or for coaching or from an idea tonight that you're going to be thinking about?
For me, it was the core values activity and using that with the candidate. I know we have to, but I'm excited for that.
Thanks, Stephen. Who else?
I'm gonna piggyback. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, knowing that we're not in it alone, it's nice to have the breakout rooms and the support and the, talk things through, and knowing we've got the master coach and everybody else that's helping run the program.
Thank you, Ocean, and welcome.
I'm gonna piggyback on Stephen in the core values. What a great way to start a conversation and really get to familiarize yourself with your candidate.
And we're excited to have a past CASC candidate. Kevin was a candidate and now he's a coach. So we're excited about that. Congratulations.
God bless. I was non-consequential, so it worked out.
Who else?
I think just the process. I appreciate it was very organized, visual, and it was easy to follow. So thank you for having it so organized and everything's there.
Thank you, Victoria. Who else?
I'm also going to say thank you for the flow chart, the 3-column notes. I know I'm going to go back and look at that to see exactly what we have to do, when it has to be done, and also the reminder of the alignment. The candidate that I'm seeing, she's outside of my district, so just that alignment in their district and their school vision.
Nice. Welcome, Lisa, also. Who else?
Also piggyback on that, I appreciate having all of the resources all in one spot, and being able to toggle easily between them. And then the samples are really great as well with the different types of samples.
Priscilla, thank you. And your amazing mother there with your family. And that was a lot. That was a lot. So we appreciate you coming tonight. That's great.
Thank you.
Who else? I know you're multitasking, so.
So the time talking about data was really important, and also just looking at bias through a few, different perspectives, I think will be important in the conversation as well.
Thank you, Jason. Welcome also. I appreciate all of you, Ellen and I and the master coaches for coming this evening. We'll make sure you have registered for the coaches training either Saturday or next Tuesday. It's 2 hours and it's really going to be a little more fun. And we're going to give you some choice in some of our breakout rooms. And so we're going to stay online for anybody that needs any technological help. But after you've filled out the survey, or you don't even need to stay online for filling out the survey, but thank you for this evening.